Create the best mushroom village to attract the fairies. Time your move right so you gain the most out of it in Fairy Ring.
And today we'll be teaching you how to play Fairy Ring, game designed by Laurence Grenier and Fabien Tanguy and published by Repos Production.
And hello everyone, it's Stella.
And Taryn here from Meeple University.
Alright, let's get to the classroom.
In Fairy Ring, players are fairies, competing to build up their mushroom villages and to visit key buildings around those villages for mana. Each turn, players will choose cards to add to their villages and then use them to move their fairies around the multiplayer Fairy Ring, scoring mana for themselves and their opponents based on where their fairies land. Whoever collects the most points and mana over 2 full rounds of play will be the winner. To set up, each player takes a village board, the matching score wheel set to 0, and the matching fairy standee. There are 3 decks of mushroom cards labelled 0, 1 and 2. If you're playing with fewer than 4 players, then for the 1s and 2s, look through these decks and remove all the cards which do not match your player count. Shuffle each of the decks and deal each player a starting 0 card face up into the centre of their village. Return leftovers to the box and place standees on these starting mushrooms. Deal each player 7 cards from the number 1 deck, returning leftovers to the box unseen, and keep the number 2 deck aside for now. Keep supplies of the 1 and 5 point mana tokens nearby available for all players to take. Choose a first player and you're now ready to play. Fairy Ring plays over 2 rounds and each round is played in 6 turns. Each turn is resolved in 3 steps: choose, resolve, and end of turn. The first step is choose. Simultaneously, all players look at the cards in their hands and choose which one they wish to play on this turn. That card is placed face down into the play slot, and all remaining cards are placed face down into the pass slot. Once all players are done, you'll proceed to resolve. The resolve phase is resolved one at a time, starting from the first player and going clockwise around the table. And when doing this, you'll resolve 3 steps. First, revealing and placing your mushroom card. Secondly, moving your fairy around the board based on the card you played. And then collecting mana based on your fairy's movement, and this may be collected by both you and some of your opponents. So let's look at each step in detail. First is to place your chosen mushroom. Upon revealing the card, you may play it into one of 3 places: as a new mushroom to the left of your village, as a new mushroom to the right of your village, or on top of a previous mushroom of the same type, turning it into a single taller mushroom. This can be done up to a maximum height of 4 cards per mushroom. So to provide a later game example, I could place this Academy card here to the left, here to the right, or here to build up this Academy mushroom. I could not place it here because it's already height 4, and I couldn't place it on any other mushroom because they do not match. The second step is to move your fairy. The mushroom card you've just played will have a movement value showing in its top left corner. Here it's 5. You must now move your fairy standee exactly that many spaces clockwise around the fairy ring. Multiple players may occupy the same mushroom. Then the third step is to gather mana. If you've finished your movement on one of your own mushrooms, then you score mana based on the objective of that mushroom. Here, yellow would score this height 2 luminarium. If you land on another player's mushroom, for example, this is movement 4, and so the white player would move 1, 2, 3, 4, then first the player who owns the mushroom you landed on will collect mana based on that mushroom. So here, blue would score for this height 1 lookout. And if the player who owns the fairy has any matching mushroom types in their own village, then that player scores mana for one of those matching mushrooms. That means here white would score for this one level 2 mushroom. You score only one of your own mushrooms even if you have multiple matching. Here, red moves to this pollinarium, meaning yellow scores this pollinarium and red scores one of these two level 1 pollinaria. If you land on an opponent's mushroom for which you do not have a match, then your opponent scores for the mushroom you landed on, but you score nothing. Each mushroom scores mana in a different way. A Magidrome simply scores the printed mana. Right now this would be worth 3 mana. If it were a level 2 Magidrome like so, it would be worth 6. The Pollinarium scores 1 mana per mushroom you have in your village for each of these icons, therefore for each height. So in this case I have a total of 5 mushrooms and this is a height 2 Pollinarium, so if it activated I would score 10 points. A Luminarium scores 1 point per visible firefly anywhere within your village per height of the mushroom. Here I can see a total of 5 fireflies and it's a height 2 Luminarium, so activating that would be worth 10 mana. Just be wary that sometimes fireflies get covered up by other cards. This is now worth 3 points per firefly, but I still have only 5 of them. The Academy scores 1 mana per movement point of the fairy currently being resolved. So if we suppose the red player had played this card into their village to move 5 spaces, yellow would now gain 5 mana for this activation. These also multiply as the mushrooms get taller, so if someone's fairy now moved here having played a 3, yellow would score 2 by 3 for 6 mana. When a lookout is activated, it scores 3, 8, 15 or 24 points, depending on whether its height is 1, 2, 3 or 4. Whatever it is, you collect your mana in mana tokens. And anytime you gain your 20th mana, discard 20 mana and replace them with 1 point on your point style. Be clear that when you're evaluating points for mushrooms, each player is determining the points based on their own village. So here, yellow's Pollinarium scores based on yellow's 3 mushrooms, while red's Pollinarium scores based on red's 2 mushrooms. The one which works a little differently is the Academy, because both players will score based on the movement that was just played by the fairy that moved. There is one other mushroom type which works very differently to the others, and those are the springs. When you play a spring, it gives you a choice of fairy movements. So here I could choose to move 3, 4 or 5 spaces, and whatever I choose is used in any academies I activate. Additionally, when a fairy lands on a spring, it scores no mana. If, on the other hand, a fairy moves past a spring without stopping, let's say blue played this 4 movement and moved across like so, then the owner of the spring gains all the mana showing on that spring. Only the spring's owner collects mana. That means when you move past another player's spring and give them mana, you don't get to activate your own spring at the same time. Choosing cards that will let you land on opponents' springs can be a good way to prevent giving them points from their best mushrooms, but be wary that you won't be collecting mana from any of your own mushrooms on the same turn. Once each player has finished resolving in turn order, you'll move to end of turn. Players now pass all of the cards that they did not choose to the player on their left. The player who had the first player tile also passes that, meaning there'll be a new first player from turn to turn. Players now look at their new cards and proceed to the next choose phase. The round ends after 6 turns. At this point, each player will have 1 card left, and these cards are returned to the box. Pass the first player token as normal, and then shuffle and deal each player 7 cards from the level 2 deck. Again, returning any leftovers to the box. These cards have the same types of mushrooms, but with higher movement ranges and higher scores on the springs and Magidromes. The second round likewise lasts 6 turns, and once the second round is complete, whoever has the most points on their point style is the winner. If there's a tie, whoever has the most leftover mana breaks the tie, and if it's still tied, victory is shared. As a variant, you can also add public objectives to the game of Fairy Ring. The game comes with 4 double-sided cards, and to begin the game, choose any 3 sides at random and place them into the centre of the play area. Whenever you meet one of these objectives, for example, having 3 mushrooms of the same type in your village, having 6 different types of mushrooms in your village, or here having 4 mushrooms of size at least 2, then mark the objective with one of your small flower tokens. This is to remind you that you can't complete the objective again, and score 1 point on your points wheel. Once you've scored an objective, you can never lose it, even if later changes mean you no longer meet the objective. Here, for example, having 3 mushrooms with 2 fireflies each, I could later build a mushroom card so that I no longer meet that, but I would not lose the marker or score that I'd already gained. And that's how to play Fairy Ring.
Thanks so much for watching. Your like and comments are much appreciated. Subscribe to see what's coming, and hopefully you have a great day. See you next time.